This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Psst, healthcare pros, word's out, and it's too good to keep quiet. Look, LinkedIn is revolutionizing job hunting, making it possible to search by specialty, shift preference, and salary. Endless scrolling is out. Whether it's a mental health therapist or dental hygienist, finding the perfect role is faster and easier than ever. Head to linkedin.com/healthcare and start your search today.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana makes car selling fast and easy from start to finish. Enter your license plate or VIN and get a real offer in seconds, down to the penny. If you accept, Carvana will come pick up your car from your driveway. Or you can drop it off at one of our car vending machines. Either way, you get paid instantly. It's fast, transparent, and 100% online. Car selling that saves your time. That's Carvana.
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.
Welcome to episode 70 of the High Volume Hiring Podcast. 70 is a nice even number. It's got a good ring to it. I'm one of your co-hosts, Stephen Rothberg with College Recruiter. We believe that every student and recent grad deserves a great career and should be paid properly for that. See what I did there? Jeanette, how are you doing?
Like it. I am great. Hi, everyone. I am Jeanette Leeds. I'm a TA tech entrepreneur, and we are here today with Nancy, who is the Senior Director, Total Reward Strategy and Solutions at Syndio. Wait, I'm totally pronouncing it wrong because I didn't.
Totally fine. It's Syndio. All
Yes.
good.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, we didn't do that in the green word. And so Syndio, got it right?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're all about, and as you can tell, it's workplace equity analytics platforms, and it helps companies hire, reward, and advance employees fairly and consistently. And that is today's topic, which is near and dear, definitely to my heart. I know, Stephen, we were talking about, I even was talking to my son yesterday about all of this topic, much to his surprise when he asked a very simple question. So Nancy, welcome. We are so happy to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here today, to be able to talk with you. So
excellent. So we always focus, because we're the High Volume Hiring Podcast, and now episode 70, which is like a super lucky number because we got the number 70. So, maybe like we just, start off simply high level with like, what does it mean? Like, how would you almost define, what does it mean to hire and reward and advance employees fairly and consistently? And then obviously if you could just take like the angle of in a high volume world, because that's our, listeners.
Absolutely.
Like, what does that mean?
It's a great question. And I mean, it seems kind of simple, but better than anybody, it is not, right? It's making fair and consistent people decisions. And when you do that in a high volume environment, you realize that actually that is a lot of people making a lot of decisions all at once. So, right. So I spent a career, the reason why Total Rewards is in my title is because that's actually my prior life. Prior to being with Syndio, I was a consultant at Willis Towers Watson for many, many years. And prior to that, I stood up the compensation function at the first company I worked at.
Oh, wow.
So fun times, right?
Yes.
So kind of baptism by fire, but it really bit me, in terms of, I loved the idea of designing pay programs, of designing these frameworks, right? And what they're decision frameworks. Yeah. They're supposed to be guidelines for you to follow, and people are supposed to actually follow them, right? When they're making
all the time.
Exactly. And so when they're making an offer, stay in that range. When you're promoting somebody, transferring, hey, here's the guidance. So then you realize after many, many years, right, of doing this, there's this element of, okay, over here's the plan. Why are we so far off plan? And that comes again with volume, right? It's just realizing those decisions. Number one, when we think about pay, it's not as simple, right, as having a range to go by. Because, for instance, I come with a history. So even if, legislation, which I think is actually really effective, tells you not to ask me what I'm making now, I'm of a certain age that, it was asked before, right?
Mhm.
And that history follows me. So it's, when we think about sometimes historically, we've made pay decisions based on another company's culture, another
Yes.
company's pay decisions, right? That
Yes.
accumulates. And even when we're promoting, we have this guidance, but we're really focusing oftentimes historically, we've focused on what Nancy was making right now as opposed to what the job pays. So I think what we're seeing, and this is where the transparency piece comes in, as we become more transparent, it's suddenly all those disconnects and that accumulation of all of those million of different decisions that were made, that difference between what we intended versus what's actually happening is really in the spotlight. And that's where we're seeing this effort to say, whoa, right, we have to run a business. We have to hire thousands of employees. We can't just stop doing that to get everything in order. So how can we transition to this place where we're doing it better? And that's really where the data comes in.
That makes a ton of sense. I'm really glad, by the way, that you used the word transition.
Yeah.
Right. Because that implies to me that it's not just like snap your fingers, everything is fine. We had a problem yesterday, but it's 9 a.m. today. Why isn't it all fixed? It can take time. And by doing it that way, people, I think, get permission to be thoughtful and to do it correctly.
Yeah.
And there's an expression that I like to use. Sometimes I follow it. It's better to do things a little bit slower and correctly than faster and incorrectly. So question for you. If I'm an employer, I'm looking to hire dozens, hundreds, whatever it might be. I come to Syndio and I say, here's this role that we have. Maybe it's new, maybe it's old. I'm guessing you've heard this many times from clients. It's like, we want to pay people fairly. We don't know what fair is. It seems to me most employers, despite what a lot of candidates think, most employers, I think, want to pay fairly.
Oh, yeah.
But when there's this big divergence, I think it's just they don't agree on what's fair. And
Right.
so how do you, Syndio, how do you have that conversation with those employers?
It's such a great question. So it's, and again, I kind of draw from my experience having been working with those companies where you are, you've set up these programs, you're going through that process, and now you're trying to transition people. So usually it begins with let's assess, let's understand what you have today. What are the things that you're doing today? Because we often are asking around, for instance, it's fair and transparent. And a lot of times, to your point, right, Stephen, we don't know what transparency exactly is translating into either. So is it compliance? Is it beyond compliance? Yes, please. Is it, what exactly are, but I mean, those.
I don't know about you, but I don't know very many people that are hopeful about the world of work. And I'd like to change that. My name's Marcus Mossberger, and I started the Hope at Work podcast, where you'll find two things. Number one, really interesting guests. And number two, innovative ideas about the future of work. Check it out.
Those are the things that we have a conversation really about what program. Let's look at your philosophy. Let's look at your employee value proposition. What are the things that you value? How does that play out in your total rewards philosophy? Let's look at all your programs, what you're doing today, and let's look at the data and really get a better understanding of how you're actually paying people in practice today and how aligned is that with what you've intended. So that really is the spirit of a pay equity analysis. A pay equity analysis is, of course, looking at it first and foremost from that basis of fairness in the context of let's make sure we're not doing anything illegal, right? Let's make sure, and to your point too, we don't spend all this money, for instance, on salary surveys, on getting real-time ATS data, on those are huge investments that companies make.
Yeah.
And they make it because their biggest spend is pay.
Yeah.
Right? So you have this huge budget that you're not managing effectively. You've set up systems to do that, but things are off the rails. So let's look at how much. Let's look at the scale of it and really do that assessment. And then where we see those disconnects, then let's develop an incremental plan. It's very much a transition to closing those disconnects. And honestly, the easiest one, I mean, it costs money, but it's the money, right? It's just saying, hey, Nancy's not paid what Nancy should be paid. According to our analysis, we're going to make a correction. That's where over time we do see that progress made, where you have less and less Nancys, if you will. But
no. We want more Nancy's.
More Nancy. More Nancy. No, in that way. More Nancy's, incorrectly paid. How about that?
Yeah.
But the nice thing is, so over time you reduce that. But then if you haven't put it forth, say, the programmatic changes, like, hey, when we're hiring other people, are we adhering to those ranges? Because the minute you hire one more person, well, now if you're not adhering to that guidance, you're going to be off the rails again. So what we try to do is help companies transition to a more proactive approach, to a place of maybe someday we won't have to run pay equity analysis. Imagine that. There'd be no reason for it, because we actually would have processes in place where I'm in talent acquisition and I have the data I need. I not only have the guidance that gives me what the market rate is, but now I also have the guidance of how we're paying people internally according to people's characteristics, which are those observable job related ones. So, hey, Nancy's coming in, she's going to be in this geographic zone. She has this many years of experience. She has these skill sets. If I'm able to bring together that data, not only do I have the market positioning for where she should be, but I also have insight into the internal positioning. And so I know when I make the offer that it's staying within that range. I mean, that's what we're seeing some really great forward-thinking companies do, and they're doing it at scale. They're able to roll it out across their talent acquisition teams and start to get into this pace of it, because talent acquisition, I mean, that's, your recruiters are who are really engineering, right? Operationalizing that and making it come to life.
That was one question I wanted to dive into a bit more, is what does this mean, for, talent acquisition professionals, right? And so giving some advice to them,
sure,
how they can start to think about implementing this.
I think
almost quick, easy, simple little bite size just to start. We're like, ooh.
I mean, I guess the folks I've talked to in talent acquisition are hungry, right, for this, hungry to have better information because they're on the front lines, right, talking with the prospective candidate. They're the one, they represent the company, right, and they're the initial employee experience. Like I am representing that to you, prospective candidate. So I want to attract you in the right way. So I mean, I guess what I would say is it is a change. It does require a different workflow. And what we've found is successful is when Total Rewards owns that and is really partnering with talent acquisition. So for instance, we have had situations where the Total Rewards team has said, listen, we want to bring in this data, but we need to execute it in the right way. And we're not going to do it in a vacuum. We're not going to foist it on people. So what they do is they partner with talent acquisition and say, hey, let's maybe take a pilot group of folks. Maybe these are the folks that are hiring, the most high volume jobs. Maybe these are the folks that are in segments that have, had some issues. And you're our trusted partner. Let's be trusted partners together. Here's this new way of providing these offers. Let's talk about what this means in terms of incorporating it into your workflow. We don't want to slow you down. But like you said, Stephen, right? Sometimes you got to go a little slow. But I have a story for you that the good news is that partnership often results in faster. So we have evidence that we've seen increase in applicant acceptance rates and actually lowering time to fill, which is exciting. So
I love that. It's
right?
like go slower almost to go faster, but in a really thoughtful manner.
But it's a transition. So I guess my advice would be, I know folks are up against it. I know there's a lot of pressure, and if I just, if it's going to sound very like, we could all just work together, but I, right? But truly, like it just being a little like be
Jeanette,
open-minded.
Jeanette, you'll get the campfire. I'll get the s'mores.
Yes. But it is being open-minded. Like it's one of these things. Pay transparency is not say a challenge organizations can solve in silos. And I think HR, right, has, like many functions, has been operating in silos. And what we've seen is when folks are, sort of integrating and really coming together around efforts, it's so exciting. We had a campaign that we did at one of our clients. It was so fun. And it was like, hey, just acknowledging, like, I mean, the recruiters got swag, the whole thing. It was, hey, you are on the front lines. You're making sure that we're a fair workplace. You're ensuring that we're maintaining this as a key component of our employee value proposition. And it was just so cool. It's been going so well. So I feel like that's the future, is that I think talent acquisition, because they're dealing with candidates now that are basically compensation analysts, right? They can, all this information is available now in a way that it wasn't before.
Well, we all have information available. Some of it's correct. And I think for the hiring manager, recruiter, part of their job duty is to kind of come back to that candidate and say, I hear you. That makes sense. Let me show you a better way. And maybe they're just out and out wrong. But maybe they just didn't take into effect something like geography. You lived in a town of 50 people, 200 miles away from the next biggest town. That's really different than if you're working in Midtown Manhattan.
Exactly.
In terms of the comp. Well, we need to leave off. Thank you to our sponsor, Itabu, one of the world's best job distribution companies. Hopefully some of your clients, Syndio, are getting the proper pay into their postings that then go from the ATS to Itabu to job boards, etc. Great. Did I kind of work that in okay? I think that was okay.
I'm giving you the double thumbs up on
Ooh,
that.
Nice. Sweet. That's the best feedback I'll get today. So Nancy, thank you so much for joining us. Jeanette, as always, it's been awesome, and see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the Thursday.
Bye. Great talking to you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.